Sup nerds, I'm Tom. We're going to talk about Remnants by Fireside Games, but obviously you knew that because you clicked on this video, but that's the same thing I said in the Trap Words video, but now you know the order in which I filmed these things. Oh, fun facts! Remnants might be one of Fireside's most complicated games. When we did an interview with Justin at Gen Con, or actually Wes did the interview, I didn't do the interview. I was listening to Justin talk about, how everything works, all the different roles, all the different setup and variable player powers and stuff like that. And I was like, oh wow, this is like a much bigger, meatier game. Fireside is mostly smaller, quicker games like Castle Panic and Kaiju Crush and Hot Shots. Hot Shots was probably closer to this level of complexity and number of rules, but they're always relatively simple. And this game sounds like it has a lot of rules, and it does, but it actually is overall really simple. There is a real-time dice rolling to gather resources. You use those resources to buy cards. That could either be stuff that'll get you more resources, points for the end of the game, or weapons. And then you fight bad guys. That's it. Those three main phases. And then you do that a couple of rounds. How many rounds is it? It's 6 rounds because you fight 3 guys and only every other round. So you get a full round of gathering resources and buying cards to kind of gear up. And those guys get harder every level. So that's the thing. Like it's real simple like in the overall, right? Like I can explain to you the basics like that, those 3 phases. And you're like, okay. But within that, there is more rules and complexity because again you're fighting harder guys as the game goes on. You have 3 different bad guys or boss monsters you can choose to fight or pick them at random. Those guys can each have modifier cards. You have more than just gathering resources. You put the resources on people. Like you send out little survivors. And those are the guys that gather the resources, and then you actually split out. If you have 5, you can send 3 to gather resources, and 2 to gather, I don't remember what it's called, but you have these 3 tracks on your board that are kind of resources and more like special abilities. You have medicine that'll heal your guys because they can get damaged. You have tools that you can spend as successes when you're fighting the bad guys, and junk, I think it's called, that you can spend as wild resources. So while those are different, right? Like, you have to split up your guys to either gather resources, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different resources, and if you're the first one done, you can get a bonus token, and then you send these other guys to roll and move up on these tracks. That sounds like a lot. But at its core, that's still just gaining resources or gaining abilities. Like if you just think of these tracks as more resources, then yeah, it really makes a lot of sense. And I have to say, I think this might be one of their best games. Now, it's not going to be for everybody. I really liked it because I really, really like real-time dice rolling. I really like that Escape the Hidden Temple game. There's another game called Eye for an Eye that went on Kickstarter. So I just got really into that, like real fast, boom, 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 boom. I mean, there probably are other games that have real-time dice rolling that I just can't think of right now. But when I played this game with some people at the store, not everybody liked it. There were a lot of people who walked away kind of lukewarm, but I noticed the people who didn't like it mostly didn't like the real-time dice rolling part. That was where the hindrance came for them. And I guess it's because they just can't, like they were always doing it slowly, like doing it wrong. And in my view, they would be like, okay, let's see what I've got. Okay, I've got 2 metal. Do I need metal? Yeah, I guess I could use metal. I'm going to roll. I didn't get metal. Okay, still didn't get metal. Should I change and not try and get metal anymore? Still didn't get metal. I'm like, what? No, I was just... There's like a certain amount of distance you shouldn't bring your hand up from the table. It should be like within a half inch of just grab and drop, roll, roll, roll. Or some people also just really don't like dice in general. This is a very dice heavy game. You can get a lot of cards to mitigate the dice rolls, but you are at the mercy of the dice a decent amount. And I guess a lot of people don't like that. And lastly, the other reason why I think people tended not to enjoy the game was that, so with the theme, the post-apocalyptic theme, resources are really scarce. There's this Badlands deck that just does bad things to you all the time. The big baddies that you fight can be pretty punishing if you don't defeat them. So the game can really beat up on you if you're not doing that well. And you could say, well, it's just because I didn't roll the dice well enough. But I do feel like there is a lot of mitigation in there. A lot of you could just buy more. You can always get more survivors. You have these tracks can let you again mitigate the dice. That the weapons can help a lot with that. So if you're not doing well within the first few rounds, that's okay. If you're not doing, you can blame that on the dice. The first round or two, you can blame that on the dice. By the end of the game, I'm starting to feel like, that's your fault. You're not making good enough choices or realizing that you have bad luck and doing things to mitigate that. The only other complaint that I will have, so I was saying those were the reasons why other people I was playing the game with walked away not really loving it. Those didn't bother me. I felt like I really like the dice rolling. I just like dice games in general. I like the real-time dice rolling. And while the game is pretty punishing, I feel like you can fix that. You can tell if you're not doing well, and you can get stuff to modify. Always buy more survivors, I think, is a really good thing, and move up these tracks a lot is another really good thing. But the only thing that I didn't really like is I felt that the first player, unless I made some mistake, I felt like the first player kind of had a bit of an advantage, and not so much advantage as much as, when in a 4-player game, when you're going last, like let's say for picking cards, probably the main thing. There aren't a lot of weapons, which is thematic, and I guess another complaint. It's thematic, but I kind of wish that there were a few more, because sometimes you're like, wow, we got to battle a guy, and there just aren't any weapons out there. We're all going to be screwed just because of the luck of this draw. But let's say there's like one weapon out there. Okay, this guy got it. Boom. Now there's another weapon out there. And then this guy got it. Boom. Now there's no weapons. Like, by going and it does change, first player changes, but you just kind of feel like in this one round, I'm going last, and I happen to not be able to get the weapon. It's a very minor, and, it's a lot of luck. It's hard to fault the game for that, but that's, kind of the only time when I was watching that happen, because it actually didn't happen to me. It happened to one of the people who walked away from the game not really enjoying it, and I was saying, yeah, I guess that does suck, but I don't really know what you would do about that. Maybe more weapons in the decks would probably help with that. But then that means that, like, point cards are more scarce. So someone's going to win because they got a point card and utilize that. I don't know. It seems like a not very fixable problem, but it's not even really it's a problem. It just kind of happens a couple of times, and that's pretty much the only real issue I have with the game. Overall, in spite of those other things I said, I really, really, really enjoyed this game. Again, like I said, I think it might be their best. I really liked Hot Shots too, because that, it was a co-op game, but it had a lot of complexity with the wind moving and all that kind of stuff. Like, Castle Panic is their steeple, right? Or their staple. I always say that wrong. Well, Castle Panic is kind of their flagship game. I don't know. I felt like some of these other releases by themselves, I guess when you compare base to base, right? Like, because Castle Panic has a lot of expansions, so it's not really fair to say that. But like base to base, I think some of their newer releases are starting to, usurp Castle Panic in my brain. I think Hot Shots and this are better than Castle Panic. I probably like Castle Panic better than Kaiju Crush. But then again, I'm not reviewing any of those games in this video, so why am I still talking about it? The last thing I will say about this game is there's a lot of replayability, because like I said, there's 3 different bosses you can pick and different modifier cards, and there's variable player powers and things like that. But it's a little bit like the illusion of variability, because those different bosses are also like different levels. Do I want to play with a different boss is more like, do I want to play with a harder boss? And do I want to play with a different modifier card is, do I want to play with a harder modifier card? You know what I mean? I would like to see an expansion that's maybe just a small pack of cards. They could just be a tiny little thing, pack of cards, and maybe a few more bonus tokens, like one little sheet of punchboard that has more bonus tokens in there, because that's another thing that I felt like I saw the same bonus tokens kind of a lot. But other than that, if any of what I was talking about sounds interesting to you, and I think it should, you should definitely click on the purchase link in the description box down below. Get yourself a copy of Remnants, and while you're down there, don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you'll never be bored. Boom.